Yeah, so I guess we could just get started. We can run through some quick intros for the people that are just first joining us.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Klein. I'm the head of marketing for Nervos, and I've been here about a month now, so we're trying to get some good marketing efforts going.
Hey guys, I'm Jordan, and I'm one of the senior software engineers here at Nervos, and I work in developer relations.
I'm Matt. I work on ecosystem growth.
Hey guys, I'm Amir. I'm on the business dev team here at Nervos.
Hey, I'm Eric. I'm also working in developer relations.
And I'm
go ahead,
go ahead, Luis.
Taylor. Yeah. Well, I'm Luis, and I work in community at Nervos.
Perfect. And I'm Taylor. I work on the business dev side as well.
Where should we start? I think there's a couple high profile things, but like anyone feel free to just jump into it.
Yeah, I think we should start right up at the top of the list here. Hey Eric, do you want to intro this one since you put it on?
Sorry, it's a little hard trains going by here right now. Can anyone else take the first one? It's insider trading at OpenSea.
Yeah, this is a big one here. So it just came out that OpenSea has admitted that they had one or more employees at their company that were doing some insider trading with the NFTs that they were releasing. So what was going on was the employees would know that they would know exactly what was going to appear on the front page. And so they were going in and they were buying up these NFTs before they were released on the front page, while they were so cheap. And then as soon as they hit the front page and the price went way, way up, they were immediately selling them and making a large profit. So, I mean, this is a bummer to hear because OpenSea is, of course, the number one NFT platform in the game right now. And this is definitely not something good to hear.
Yeah, I think it just kind of shows like the space is still kind of under attack by the mainstream. I mean, that combined with NFT, the word NFT in a headline makes news. So I think it's a little blown out of proportion personally because, I mean, insider trading happens every single day of the week. And, you rarely hear about anybody being, prosecuted about it publicly. I mean, I can only really think of Martha Stewart personally, and that was years and years ago. But I don't know. That's my 2 cents. What do you guys think?
It reminds me a lot of Coinbase had this fiasco with Bitcoin Cash listing in 2017. I remember, like the ICO. Well, I guess not. It's not ICO, but yeah, it's just the centralization problems. Yeah, I mean, I guess in anything. I mean, miners. If it was a decentralized thing, miners could do this. But yeah, centralized marketplace. This type of thing happens.
Right. Now, I think that it is a little bit blown out of proportion here, but at the same time, the people at OpenSea here, like when they are the number one marketplace, they need to be taking steps to be responsible with that. But also here, the problem is that they have such kind of a major hold on the NFT marketplace industry right now. This is really, we do need to have much more decentralization in this respect. We should have more than one dominant marketplace here, and probably later on down the line, we need to find a way where this is less vulnerable, right? This is just kind of like the thing that happens with every major exchange. Like you get listed on Coinbase, and all of a sudden your coin gets a price hike, right? It's
guaranteed.
Like, yeah, it's a guaranteed thing. They are somewhat of gatekeepers, and that effectively is the problem right there. Is that they are the gatekeepers.
Yeah, we're forcing like self governance is going to be required. Like, I do think Coinbase has policies where, they're people that are in charge of the listings. They're not allowed to, purchase the tokens per their like contracts, especially since they're public. But like a lot of these smaller companies and even decentralized ones, I mean, how can you control what wallets, you can't control access to every wallet every employee has, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jordan. I think it really ultimately just kind of highlights the issue of central, exchanges that will, they have access to so many things before everything else, and they can leverage that if they choose to, and that doesn't make it a fair marketplace for everyone and all of its users. So it's ultimately just illustrating that there just needs to be a need to further, look past the need for even an exchange like OpenSea, or they need to, make some changes that uh, doesn't give them too much power, that doesn't allow users to feel like, they're playing an unfair game.
I hear like a lot of calls calling for like decentralization, but I wonder like like what that even looks like for a marketplace, right? Because if like suppose that you have like just a place where you can list assets and that's it, right? What does discoverability look like in those scenarios? Or like I think that most marketplaces strive to have like a curation aspect to it, and as soon as you have somebody behind the like curatorial wheel, like you can't like really escape that um that potential for greed to take over, right? And like front run some of these supporters. And it gets even like weirder when like you're actually like a fan of the art, right? Like what if you bought in super early and you're like, no, like this collection actually needs like some recognition, and now you have like some kind of conflict of interest, right? Yeah, I don't know if like you all have any thoughts on like when people say like decentralized OpenSea, like what that even like means
I
necessarily.
Yeah, let me jump in here. The whole part of curation too is to me is a giant gatekeep, and I found with a lot of different NFT sites, like when I went there, what was on the front page is sort of what sells, and then once you get like a few pages in, you find stuff that's not selling, and a lot of this stuff wasn't bad art. A lot of it was amazing art, but that even the act of curation acts as such a gatekeeper, to what's going to sell. And we see that, I mean, way beyond NFTs, right? It's almost like any kind of marketplace, whether it's like Steam or, Apple Store or whatever, things that hit the front pages sell well, right? It doesn't matter how good or bad it is. So that in itself is an issue. But of course, yeah, like how can we deal with that? Can we create algorithms that will sort better for us than sort of human curation? And I mean, what does that look like for art?
I think one thing that may change this is just the proliferation of NFTs. Like I saw a demo earlier this week, and someone looking at creating NFTs of basically just any social media post.
Yeah.
So right now, like we're in a world where like there are a lot of NFTs, but maybe not nearly as many as there will be. And then if things break down into much smaller communities, just because of the abundance of different NFTs, maybe these things aren't so prevalent. You still have you still have the same kind of dynamics, but they'll be going on in like 1,000 different places at the same time. So maybe it's just very different.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Eric, back to what you mentioned, like maybe there could be maybe it doesn't need to be like an algorithm that moderates the NFTs. Maybe it's maybe it's like a visible, transparent set of guidelines around like what kind of art can make the front page, right? Where it's like, hey, it has to be an established artist. They already have to have like X NFT sales over a certain amount of money, and that way, it kind of like it gives you the guidelines about who can be there. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I definitely think you need to introduce an algorithm for that type of stuff if you truly want to remove any risk of people gaming the system. And you could even have different like sub pages on the front page, like maybe one that presents renowned NFT artists that have a certain number of followers or a certain amount of sales in whatever currency is accepted, and then maybe you have another section that's like up and coming, and you just do the opposite. You take people that don't have any. Yeah, exactly.
I really want to push back against the algo stuff just because of like what's happened
Yeah.
to Spotify, what's happened to like all these things where like most of the stuff that gets highlighted anyway, like how would the algo base his information, right? Like it would probably be based on stuff that's most engaging. And the stuff that's most engaging isn't probably the stuff that's of highest quality. Like I think that that's like an easy thing to debate, right? Like what quality even like means. But I think back to the Tumblr days, right? And like part of the reason why that stuff was successful is because it was like able to highlight stuff that was happening at like a subcultural level. And I think that like it's just gonna take time for NFTs to get to the point where there's like really cool, really weird, really niche like subculture stuff that like is not even meant for the front page, right? Like it's meant to be something that's like somebody that appreciates like the like super nitty gritty like details of like a sub scene, right? Like you have jazz, and then like in the future, like you have something like vaporwave that like just is meant to slow down and like something very truly specific. Um, and I don't know if like algos are like can really like necessarily maybe they could like replicate some of that, but I really think that that human element and like that like human curation aspect of it is like kind of like gatekeepy, but it's that's just like a consequence of like having taste or having bias or having like an opinion, right? It's meant to
I feel
be.
like this
And
is a
it's like the
interesting
current
where we
economic
start
model of
conversation.
NFTs like kind of support that, right? Like the reason that super rare is because of the curation, and like that's what you need to survive as a marketplace today. And maybe that changes when NFTs continue to kind of proliferate.
It, I think I think actually it would be interesting to see if like there would be a way for the curation aspect to just be completely like the curation aspect to be divorced from the marketplace, and then also um, a separate vehicle for discovery that also isn't necessarily connected to a marketplace. Because ultimately, what's going to empower most people, kind of similar to, if we're thinking about like how DeFi and banking and trading works, essentially you just want to give a person the tools to you know do all the work themselves, and minimize what is the fees that are associated with that. And I think, like, just like you said, Matt, the curation aspect is tied into the marketplace, but if those things can be separated, but also maybe work in a you know uh, maybe distant or harmonious kind of way, that might look better. But I also have no clue how that would exactly work. I mean, the only platform I think that is fully maybe empowering users with their own marketplaces is Metaplex, really. But um, yeah.
Yeah, being a marketer and knowing how dynamic content and dynamic websites work. I mean, if you were to go visit Nike.com and I'm going to go there, we're both going to see very different home pages and different recommended shoes. But like
Yeah.
OpenSea has one home page with one featured artist for everybody, it's very easy to manipulate. So I think it has to be almost like dynamic, and whether it's your search history, whether it's your NFTs, and I'm sure there's some AI algorithms that can like match you to like similar art that you have. And like actually find, like, to your point, Luis, like, hey, here's similar art to like what you like in your kind of subculture style. Like, I think some of that could be implemented.
Or even when someone creates an
Yeah.
account, like sometimes if you create an account for like a music platform, it's like, which of these
Yeah.
artists do you like? And you can select, and it's like, which of these styles of art or which of these NFTs do you like? Curate your own, private marketplace type
Yeah.
feel.
So I remember a few weeks ago that Facebook was looking at adding NFTs to their, was it Novi wallet they call it now? But yeah, I think one of those places that that their bread and butter is these kind of algos. They'll probably be the ones to do this.
Terrible.
No, I guess we don't know what that is.
Oh. sorry. It's this.
Yeah.
Feeding
No,
a
you're
different drum.
totally right though. Like that's totally valid. I mean yeah, they have those tools already made. I mean, essentially. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize this happened, but Cardano successfully launches smart contracts.
Yeah. Did you see that he won $50,000 Hoskinson 150K. I'm betting whether or not it was going to be delivered on time. So maybe I doubt that's an incentive that really actually
Wait,
made
he
it happen.
made 50K?
Yeah.
Hey.
He bet on himself to like launch him on time, and he did. So I thought that was pretty funny.
The Ethereum community can take some pointers from that, you know. Just
That's pretty wild. What a bet to make.
I
That
know,
dude is
right?
a character.
Yeah.
He is that.
I don't know where I saw this, but a Lex Friedman interview for 5 hours like that. I guess he has the fans. People will probably watch it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
He's
Yeah,
got
well,
the
he's a really
power.
good speaker. He's able to just go on and have most of it be pretty interesting. But I will say, like, I did listen to the Lex Friedman interview, and that was pretty long. That took me several sittings to get through. But anyway, back to Cardano. Yeah, I mean that's finally after nearly 6 years, or is it over 6 years of development now? Finally, they have smart contracts, which is fantastic because they are partners with Nervos, and there's a lot of stuff we want to do with them as well. They use EUTXO, and Nervos uses the Cell model, which are both derived from the UTXO model. And so I'm sure there was also some headlines immediately before the launch about there was one DApp that came out, I guess, and was put into their test net, which was getting one transaction per block. That is the result of the developer not understanding what he was doing and building a DApp that would not scale properly. But absolutely, that problem is something that could be encountered on our platform as well because it is based on UTXO, but ultimately very solvable. That's something that we've been working on for a very long time, and that's something we'll see all kinds of solutions come to emerge that.
Yeah, I think it's going to require a lot of ingenuity. I think on Chia when they're doing AMMs, I think like each user is creating their own liquidity pool, something like that, which is along the lines of like there was this GrowFi project in the Stone Age of Nervos back in 2020, and I think it was kind of similar. And there's a ton of trade-offs, and when we were talking about the decentralized OpenSea, like I think UTXOs are great to create a decentralized OpenSea, and that's a whole other discussion. But when we approach DeFi and UTXOs, it's going to be a long road, and we have this research partnership with IOHK, and I'm sure there'll be more partners brought into that. But yeah, it'll be a research topic for a long time.
Cool. So what's next on the agenda?
Well, we got to talk about the Solana event that happened very recently.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, that one was very surprising to hear. So Solana suffered from some kind of a self-inflicted DOS attack where they were getting 400,000 transactions per second, I believe. And it ended up in massive forking of the network where it completely took down the entire thing. And after nearly 24 hours of disrupted service, eventually the block validators agreed to just restart the network, effectively just like restarting all your computers at once to get the network finally back online. So, I mean, this was interesting for a lot of reasons, but number one, because it highlights that Solana is not quite at a level of decentralization that they would like to be someday. This is absolutely something that all of these networks strive to be, is resilient against these types of attack, and they're obviously not quite there yet if they were able to be taken offline. But at the same time, it's important to remember that this has happened to a lot of other networks in the past too. It's pretty early days for Solana.
Yeah, but the other networks didn't necessarily go down. So I was on Polygon when the the Iron Bank, Iron stablecoin, it wasn't a rug pull, I guess it was just a partially collateralized stablecoin, and Basically, a lot of people were trying to pull their money out of the liquidity pools when it was crashing, and someone was spamming the network with hundreds of thousands of transactions a second, which jacked up the gas fees, and nobody could get their money out. But like Polygon still managed to stay up, which is interesting because they're the chain that requires the least amount of validators to collude to take down the network, and that's only 2, and somehow they didn't go down. So that's interesting because Solana kind of prides themselves on how they are more decentralized. But do you have any idea how many nodes it takes? Sorry, go ahead.
I think Polygon is I mean, all these Ethereum things are Geth forks. So, I mean, the Polygon code base has probably just been kicked a lot harder than the Solana one has. Because, the network is rated for 65,000 TPS, which is crazy. Yeah, I think just there was something somewhere that allowed it to get up to 400,000, and then resource exhaustion. I agree with Jordan that it is just very early days. I mean, I was surprised they still call it the mainnet beta, which I think should say everything, but the token price is usually what people think about.
But it also highlights, at the same time, and while it's early days, it does highlight differences in the platforms. I mean, Vitalik Buterin put out the blockchain trilemma several years ago, and there's always a trade-off when you're trading off a security and decentralization, namely for speed. So they're at a different level of the spectrum than some of the other chains out there. Like by design, for example, Bitcoin, which is the slow but sure king, right? They would not have been taken down by the same problem. At least it's much less likely because for one, they can't process 400,000 transactions per second. Nowhere near that. I think they're at like 7 or something, and it doesn't go beyond that. But they would not get taken down by that. So, I mean, this is always the challenge here. It's right, where do you fall on the spectrum here of the blockchain trilemma? So inherently, something like Solana, in my opinion at least, while they will hit these speed goals someday, they will always have a more centralized platform in certain respects.
Yeah, which will lead to different utility on each platform. If you're sending large amounts of money, you're going to use Bitcoin, right? Just because it's safe and tried and true. Is that kind of what the 51% attack is on Bitcoin that people theorize could happen? Is what happened to Solana, or what was that, I guess, Jordan?
No, that's a little bit different here. This is a denial of service attack, which it's basically a traffic overrun, right? There's too much traffic on the system, and several years ago, Ethereum was hit with an attack which severely disrupted the network for a while, and they've been hit by certain things also just several times by different attackers, and they get more resilient each time. But a denial of service is much different than a 51% attack, where a 51% attack is used to effectively create 2 different lines of history that are going simultaneously. And then they make transaction on the dominant side. And then once those transactions are accepted, the other side is they shift the proof of work over there or release the chain so that the second side, which has an alternate view of history, becomes the dominant, and it overwrites the one that had already been proliferated out to the network. And that allows people to effectively reverse a transaction that's happened. And so that's used to it's usually targeted at exchanges. It's when an attacker makes a deposit and then rewrites history so that they didn't make that deposit. But they already put their money into the exchange, they trade it for some other coins, and they made the withdrawal of those coins. So they're effectively targeting an exchange and taking money from them.
Like a double spend or something. Yeah, that makes
exactly. It's to enact a double spend, exactly.
So part of the story from the last week, by the way, hi everyone, I was a little bit late to the party. So part of the story is also Arbitrum had an outage last week, but first of all, they were back after an hour, and second of all, I think you could still force a transaction on layer 1, even if if the sequencer didn't accept layer 2 transactions. So I think user withdrawals were still possible. So it shows quite a difference, because if you create a rollup that is based on layer 1 security, then you can still push these transactions on L1 probably and withdraw funds and probably maybe verify state. But if you have something which is less decentralized, then basically you need to find someone like one of the nodes, and they need to talk between each other, and you are basically stuck. So I think it's important to add this.
Yeah, it's a great consideration. Yeah, there's like one of the adages that's emerging now is about like layer 2 protocols, and that they're secured by the layer 1 blockchain. And yeah, with Arbitrum, there is that centralized sequencer that does all of those transactions. But yeah, you always have the option on the contract for an individual to execute something. Yeah, I think that's a great call out in terms of these considerations. So next topic is Litecoin jumping 20% after a hoax press release. It makes me think of like the old like blockchain can fix this kind of things of like if only a blockchain was involved, we wouldn't have fake news, we wouldn't have fake press releases. But somehow I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that. I mean, this has been going on since the very beginning. This is the standard fake news headline that gets run through the system, and everybody starts buying up or selling on fake news. I mean, we've had this go both ways, of course. We've had many in the past, many things come out which were not true, which had caused increases in price, most notably fake headlines about certain coins making it onto Coinbase or were going to be added, and we would later find out no, it's absolutely not true. And we've also had the exact opposite throughout the industry for many years. The headlines that run through about certain countries, large countries, banning cryptocurrency or this or that, which we would later find out was completely untrue or was completely blown out of proportion. It was a very limited new regulation, or sometimes, in some cases, it was actually a headline, a previous headline that was already known for a very long time, had already run its cycle, and then for whatever reason, some news agency is able to push through that headline again months later. The exact same news, nothing new has happened. They push it through the headlines, and it caused a market crash. It's one of the realities of how difficult it is to actually spread meaningful information throughout the world on what's actually going on.
Yeah, I think that ends up just being a symptom of our issues and plights with media and journalism in this day and age. It almost has like nothing to do with crypto in a way. I mean, it shows how many people are on Twitter and following headlines from whoever it is they follow. But yeah, that is literally just part of the issue with most forms of digital journalism and media.
Hopefully a lesson for anyone making buying decisions based off of what they read on Twitter. I don't know.
That's hard though. That's hard though, because like sometimes there's like really good alpha on Twitter. Like you could follow. I mean, I think it's more about like having
There
discernment, right? Just being like, is it?
Yeah.
It's really just be slow to react, I think.
That doesn't sound very crypto at all.
I know, but it's like as fast as things go, if I guarantee you. I mean, I didn't react to that news. Obviously, like that's fine. That's my own personal thing. But like, I also have learned probably enough that FOMO will almost 95% of the time get you burned. So that's if anybody out there needs one little tip that I could give out, just when everyone's going a million miles a second, just take like a few seconds to slow down and process, because I mean, that could be probably the biggest issue in our space, is just how fast we move with everything.
Speaking of things moving fast, Ukraine could soon become the second country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. So one thing I retweeted today is that the IRS changed, like on their website, it used to say that Bitcoin is not legal tender in any jurisdiction, and now it says that it's not legal tender in the US. So things are changing.
Big steps.
Mm-hmm.
Huge steps.
That will be extremely interesting if they do that, because they are relatively big country.
Yeah, the legal tender distinction is pretty significant. It doesn't quite feel that way because I guess it's not really being used too much, but like the El Salvador thing is huge, and then it just continues.
Yeah, definitely. El Salvador was something that I didn't expect to happen so quickly. I thought it would be quite some time before any country would go so hard on any cryptocurrency. So to hear Ukraine coming out with this now, this is extremely bullish news to me. That they're not only seeking it as legal tender, but they're also looking to mine as well, just like El Salvador did with green mining. Ukraine is talking about doing nuclear power-based mining, which is effectively one of the more green types of power that we have. And for those who are unfamiliar with the way that nuclear power kind of works, is that when you build a facility, you have a tremendous amount of power at that facility that is basically unutilized for a very long time. You can't just scale up a nuclear facility. You have to kind of build the entire thing. So they have probably, and you're building this station to power for decades, right? So they have a tremendous amount of excess energy with these stations that could be going to something. It could be, and they're looking to take that and turn it into money for their country by mining Bitcoin, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure they'll do very well with that.
By the way,
yeah, it's brilliant.
Regarding nuclear power and Ukraine, Ukraine used to be the used to have the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, because they inherited 3,000 nuclear weapons when they became independent from the Soviet Union. And right now they are also looking at again at nuclear weapons, because when they gave up all their nuclear weapons, basically for the promise of the protection by the biggest countries in the world, like US, UK, and France. And now, because of the aggression from the east, and they are looking again at nuclear weapons. So it would be interesting if they also if they also do crypto when they are like ramping up their nuclear stuff. I'm not
That's
sure
a really
if they still have
interesting,
experts.
like bombs or Bitcoin kind of decision to be made there. That's incredible.
Or it's like the biggest covert operation is, we're just mining Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think for both of these stuff you require nuclear experts. And I wonder if they still have the technical knowledge and the people to do it, because they are probably again looking at, like, I don't know, like getting these people back.
Actually, I have a question. Like, and this is for everyone. When we see these countries adopting a currency, I mean, we all immediately can understand the immense value of that, but we also know Bitcoin's not going to be necessarily an everyday transaction, currency. So what ultimately, do these countries expect to, gain from adopting so early a currency that ultimately isn't necessarily going to be like, their medium of exchange anytime soon?
The issue is around volatility, like price volatility.
What do you mean?
Like when you say that it won't be a medium of exchange, you're saying that because of the price volatility of Bitcoin?
No, I think just in terms of practicality, of, you know, everyday transactions. Like if I'm going between shops and going to the bodega or going to do the laundromat, you know, am I going to ultimately be, you know, going to use Bitcoin at whatever merchant for, you know, for these transactions, you know?
Why not?
Like I think the idea of getting a whole society ahead of the curve and native is really forward thinking, but also I just, you know, I'm like thinking too, like, okay, so what ultimately are people going to be doing with any of the Bitcoin that they're given? You know, how do they plan to um, initiate and acclimate their citizens with the currencies?
Right. Well, I think really what you're ultimately talking about is the technology. And we know that Bitcoin is criticized very heavily for having high transaction fees, very slow confirmation times. And so, what are they going to do about it? They're probably going to do the same thing that El Salvador did, which is build a centralized platform that users could effectively use. And so, like, I mean, that's if they go that route, right? If they push it on their citizens by making it legal tender, they don't necessarily have to even offer that. They can just say that people are able to use it and they could adopt whatever solution they want, in which case they're just hoping that the industry pushes forward on something. But in the short term, what does it mean for them? I think that it means revenue generation and hopefully for their citizens as well, that by adopting it and Bitcoin appreciating in the future, they're putting their citizens, their own citizens, in a better place. I think that's really probably the main goal at this point. But as far as how are they going to roll it out, how are they going to actually make it usable? I don't see really any other solution coming from a government other than pretty much centralization. And while that's not the ideal, I see that as definitely being a positive step forward for the entire industry because it's showing really that the demand is there and that these types of applications, mainly point of sale, everyday transactions, is something that well, the technology hasn't quite gotten there. Absolutely, the need is, and absolutely people can have they will use these they will use cryptocurrency for everyday purchases. So I mean, with Bitcoin in particular, we know that their layer one is not going to facilitate this. They're trying to push out like Lightning Network, which is a disappointing solution. But the layer two technology, the technology that powers Lightning Network, it is something that does have potential to it. I mean, that is also a solution that we look for in Nervos here. The biggest differentiator between Bitcoin and Nervos is that Nervos, we actually took the time to engineer a platform, a layer one, that is designed to be multi-layer. It's designed to better facilitate technologies like Lightning Network. So in the future, like, what are people going to be using? They're probably going to be using systems like Lightning Network, or possibly the descendant of Lightning Network, where it is very fast. It's pretty much instantaneous, and the fees are minuscule. So, I mean, we're not there, but I think that's where it's going.
I think one of the biggest concerns that I'm thinking about is so in this El Salvador situation, so you have all of the citizens' Bitcoin concentrated in one place, a custodian. What happens if somehow that custodian's keys leak and all of those citizens' Bitcoin is gone? Yeah, that seems like the biggest concern. But yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to add anything on that, but I think it's a good time to invite anyone up too. So if you do want to jump up, feel free to request.
Yeah, hit the request and we'll get you up here to ask some questions. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for someone to jump up, just to kind of tack onto the conversation because it's along the same lines, AMC announced that they're going to announce that they're going to accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies by the end of 2021. It's committed to accepting Bitcoin as payment for online ticket purchases.
It's sick. And actually, to tie it in your statement with what we just previously were talking about, the more I think about it, you're kind of enabling citizens to participate in the global marketplace too. That could be one of the bigger, you know, I guess benefits, because the more places like, let's say, an AMC that accepts, crypto, someone can have that coming from one of these other countries where it's legal. They'll be able to carry it with them, and then they come to New York and they want to go see a movie. Boom, they don't have to do anything extraneous to try and participate in that marketplace. So that would be one huge upside I can think of.
Yeah. So going back to the headline here about AMC, though, it looks like they may also accept some other ones, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash at some point. I see this as a very positive move for AMC to do that. But at the same time, I think this is, again, one of those cases where it's going to take some time before this is actually practical. Like, for example, if you're going to go to AMC and buy a $10 movie ticket, I don't think that you want to pay a $7 transaction fee on top of that. So it might,
Probably
yeah,
not.
it might take a little while here. But I mean, ultimately, the move by them, while maybe chasing headlines a little bit, I think it's very positive, and I hope that other major companies also follow suit.
All right, I see we have Israel up on stage. Anything you want to share about the conversation? It's great to see you here.
Yeah. Hey, Matt. Hey, Andrew. Yeah, I just wanted to lean in on the conversation around Bitcoin adoption by states. And so the Bitcoin adoption by states is the hard money versus soft money thing. It's it's this ancient dilemma. That if you've got a hard money substance like gold that is very hard to mine, and it becomes perpetually more valuable. And if you have soft money like a copper, something that's easily created, or paper, even more easily created, then it continues to devalue itself. So the adoption of hard money like Bitcoin, always since our we wrote it like before there was a Bitcoin, we were writing about this. Then when there was a Bitcoin, this conversation really took off, and this has been the conversation over the last 12 years, is what would be the value of a hard money not created by a centralized authority. And now we're seeing that experiment in real life, and then looking into the future, now we're seeing a newer experiment of states now having hard money, and looking further into the future, let's say 10, 20, 50 years out, those states that have hard money versus those states that have soft money, I would see them having greater risks.
You cut off at the tail end there, Chief. If you could just repeat last little bit.
Oh, I would say I would see the states that have hard money versus those that have soft money having perpetually greater resources than the latter.
Do you mean like hard money, like not tied to like the government like entity versus like money that is? Or what do you mean by that? Sorry.
Oh yeah. So hard money. Okay, so political. So hard money is types of money that it's hard to create. It's you actually have to create this hard money resource, and then it's a term within political science, capitalism. When you're speaking about capital, you're talking about hard money versus soft money. So let's say an ancient example is the state the state of Rome had this. They started to devalue their currency. Yeah, every generation to build projects, and eventually people stopped accepting that Roman currency because it had cheap metals in it. Well, similarly, the hard money, soft money things still exist, and those people that have a type of money that's hard, that means that money will so at least retain or grow in value. So you could buy about the same amount of wheat with an ounce of gold 1,000 years ago as today. You could buy a toga.
Yeah, I think hard money is a great, great defense against the human nature, because, like, as you say, like, thousands of years have passed, and we are still doing the same thing. Like, we are still like inflating the money to fund new projects. Effectively, everyone is losing because inflation is just like a hidden tax for everyone. Here in Poland, for example, we have 5% inflation this year. I think other countries, at least in Europe, are pretty similar. So yeah, I think it's just like a part of human nature to just like try to have more money, having the same resources somehow to achieve some short-term goals, which long-term, as you said, probably values the states that would have the hard currency. Because like you can even now Google how much gold do different states have, and yeah, I think it's a great security. Like when there's war or something, then basically your deposits, your gold deposits probably are really important to like fund soldiers, etc. I know I'm like doing all these war metaphors today, but
But it's true. You're totally right. It's I think you and Israel make a very valid point.
One thing I'm thinking about is, I guess it's along the lines of like the El Salvador custodian being hacked, is that you need some sort of a cyber army almost to support or to protect the hard money. I guess it helps if that it gets distributed out to the citizens. But to Jordan's point, like with Bitcoin today, like Lightning is a hub and spoke kind of model, and we're just not there yet. Yeah, again, bombs or Bitcoin, a different kind of army.
yeah, so it's also pretty interesting because there was this interview with Ray Dalio, and he said that if cryptocurrencies become really successful, then the governments will try to shut it down. And I wonder, like, what should people like who heavily invested in Bitcoin do? Like, because like there will be some resistance, and what then? I just hope we don't end up in like some kind of like civil war or something. Because if Ray Dalio says that and there's this sense that government is really might be against cryptocurrencies because it undermines the dollar, for example. So yeah, I just hope we don't go to the point of like a physical violence.
Right. Well, I share that sentiment greatly, but if you had asked me 5 years ago, do I think that cryptocurrencies will be made illegal by most governments, I would have told you probably yes. And that's on the basis that it's a direct threat to whatever the national currency is. And for a government the governments of the world, for them to continue to exist in their current way of operation, which is to tax out of control and spend out of control and just try to dominate everything, that's unsustainable if people switch to hard money. And so, fortunately, we haven't seen that. And I'm starting to doubt that we will see that kind of pushback. Not directly, because it would be a political nightmare. But we have absolutely seen there's people like Elizabeth Warren who's out there campaigning against cryptocurrencies, and other people that are very prominent in the governments that are pushing every angle they can to try to derail the movement towards hard money. And it's very obvious that they've made traction, unfortunately. Then we need to continue to push back against them. They try to keep sneaking things in, like with the infrastructure bill, where these are definite threats. Like, these are very damaging things. Even if it's only a short-term endeavor, these are very damaging bills that are being pushed through for cryptocurrency. It's already hard enough to use this stuff as is. And when you start putting these bills in there, we're making it so that it can't be used for point of sale. You can't go to the store and just buy something. Like, even with these companies like AMC right now, you're supposed to claim that on your taxes. You're supposed to have a line on there saying that you spent $10 at AMC buying a movie ticket. Like, how ridiculous is that? That this has to go into your taxes now. I mean, that's the regulations that exist today that we all are forced to comply with when we're just trying to use this stuff as money.
Well, if anything, they're playing catch up now, and I think everything might be already past like escape velocity. So they have to sneak things into bills, and they have to kind of try and get creative with how they usurp things as, you know, more and more not only adopt, but then also just some of the wealth generation that's already happened and transferring of wealth that's already happened in this space. I definitely don't think that they've already missed their opportunity. If anything, they're playing a game of catch up, trying to throw as many spikes in the road to slow things down as they can. Yeah.
It kind of boils down to like an innovation game, right? Like, of course, you can slow it down with these kind of regulations, and I think like I watched the Ray Dalio clip, and it seemed like he was alluding to kind of like making cryptocurrency like a black market thing, so that maybe it'd be hard for people to use or it'd be stigmatized. Which is, you can definitely do that, but the thing that I see is like we're talking about money here. It's like if cryptocurrencies bring more prosperity than government issued currencies can, then like over time that'll continue to win out. And I mean, I was thinking about modern monetary theory. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but that just basically says we can print as much money as we want and nothing bad will happen, which may be true. People can try it. But I think it will require something like that where, if governments want to end the reign of cryptocurrencies, they need to come up with something better for their citizens. And that's it's a high bar.
And they won't, and they don't have to. At least that's how I feel with everything that we do every day.
I mean, doesn't it kind of fly in the face of like a free society though, to say that if the powers that be want to shut something down, they'll shut it down. I mean, I understand, like, I'm coming off a little idealist, but
yeah, I mean, but no, I mean, I don't know. I definitely, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that they will try, and I think that we're already seeing the beginning of that, where immediately when El Salvador announced that they were going to accept Bitcoin as legal tender, we started seeing pushback from the United States, the IMF, towards that, trying to tell them to proceed with caution, I believe, is something along that lines, which is, political speak for don't do this. We don't like what you're doing. And they have reasons for it, but it's to our benefit, though. I don't think that there is a coordinated effort within our government, I would say, to really take a stiff hand towards all this stuff. I mean, our government is disorganized. There's a lot of disagreement. That's part of the way that it's supposed to operate. We have different sides which are arguing their different points. So when we talk about can they go and effectively just immediately shut down another country like that, I think the answer to that is no. And that's because largely they are still held accountable to some extent by the people. They operate, our representatives are supposed to represent the views of the people. And this is where kind of the evils and also benefits of politics come into play. It has to be a politically favorable opinion to shut down El Salvador in order for it to happen. And with something like cryptocurrency, where they are just genuinely trying to do something good for their people there's no real angle for the United States to come in and say, hey, we're shutting you down for the good of your people. No, it's viewed as like, what the heck are you doing to these guys? They're just trying to make their money more solid. They're trying to give more opportunities to their people. There's no reason for it, is what I'm saying. So fortunately, I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that they're going to be able to just walk in and shut down El Salvador, shut down the Ukraine for doing that stuff. And in my opinion, is that ultimately the benefits of hard money here will by far outweigh the challenges that they have. And if other countries don't follow their suit, we're going to see El Salvador and Ukraine do great, right? There is effectively competition throughout the world, and hard money is going to win here.
It's an awesome rallying cry. Does anyone else want to get up on stage and share something? We got a few minutes left. Otherwise, we can go
think we
back to the
have-
topics list.
I think we have another guest on stage, Charles.
Okay, Charles.
I think Charles might have
no.
left. I just
Actually.
invited Smrit. See what happens. I think they left.
Losing people.
Oh.
This is along the lines of Ray Dalio, the rich dad, poor dad author is hoarding Bitcoin, gold, and silver. Plans to scoop up bargains once markets crashes. Doesn't he always say the market's going to crash? Like, is that his thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Does he actually know anything worth
Bearish.
anything?
Bearish.
He's hoarding Bitcoin and gold. I mean, Bitcoin has done well over the 10-year time frame. Gold, not so much. He's definitely good at getting his views out there. I mean, we're talking about him.
He's probably making more money from that than what he's hoarding, to be honest.
Yeah. To me,
This
it
is
was like kind of
21st
funny that
century.
he was speaking about diversification in crypto, but I think there's a lot of people in the crypto industry who just like heavily invest in things and just go all in on protocols. They are aping into different stuff. So, but maybe they diversify across different cryptocurrencies.
I find it interesting though that like buying Bitcoin is like slowly becoming like, this is the most sensible approach to investing into big, cryptocurrencies. It's just kind of funny because a few years ago it's like buying Bitcoins like you're going to Silk Road and you're just completely a degen, and now that's like the I'm more of an investor, pinky finger up.
Yeah, I'm
That's what people on TikTok would
diversifying.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Robert Kiyosaki, for those who aren't really familiar, he's he wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was a very very popular book, and he's done many other books too. And he made his millions primarily off real estate. He's a real estate investor, and he's famous for going out publicly and speaking about his wealth and saying that he pays no taxes. And he does this through loopholes in the system, which he does completely disclose in his books. And he's not alone in this. I mean, we know that that's how the billionaires of the world operate. They're playing a different game. It's they live their rich lifestyle, but they pay no taxes effectively, or much less than the average person. And so that's pretty much what he's known for. And he plays the headlines too, as somebody else was just mentioned there. Like, he makes money off of a lot of different sources now, and by making himself relevant, he's generating revenue as well. So I always take his headlines with a grain of salt when he's speaking about these types of things. But I do believe that he's being true when he's saying he's buying Bitcoin, gold, and silver. That's a no-brainer there. All right, that's a lot of rich people are buying anything. I mean, that's how they keep their wealth. They understand that soft money, that the dollar is inflating out of control. This is no mystery here to the people with money who make more money by understanding how money works. They've been doing this their entire life.
Yep, exactly.
Right. Well, we're past the hour. So yeah, if there's any other closing remarks anyone wants to throw in there, it's been great to talk with you guys today, and thanks for everyone for tuning in.
No, I'm pretty good. This is great to finally jump back in with everyone.
Yeah, if anyone
Awesome.
wants to continue the conversation, join our Telegram, join our Discord. Let me invite Eric back on stage. I'm sure he has something to say about the ongoing hackathon.
Yeah, unfortunately, my connection seems to be pretty bad today, but yeah, we're just we haven't quite finished the first week of the hackathon. So if you are interested in joining the hackathon, if you're a Solidity developer, you make dApps or anything like that, come join us at I think the easiest place to reach us, just come to the Discord and check us out there.
Great. There's $150,000 in CKB up for grabs. People should jump on it.
Right.
All right. Well, it's been great today, and yeah, take care, everybody. Talk more soon.
Bye.
See you guys. Thanks,
See you.
everyone.